Today's topic that we are going to start with is facility planning, which includes facility location and as well as facility layout. So we'll be starting with facility layout first, and then we'll take up facility location. So facility planning includes facility location as well as facility layout. Okay. What all things we are going to cover is we are going to talk about capacity planning. Okay, because facility layout is directly connected to capacity planning. So that is one thing that we are going to look at. Just initiation about the about the capacity and relationship to it through facility layout has been initiated in the previous session. Okay, so here what we are going to look is under facility layout, we'll be talking about product layout, process layout, fixed layout, cellular layout, group technology. Okay, service and retail layouts, techniques and tools for layout planning. Will definitely not be going in detail because our objective is only just to get a basic idea. When we talk about retail operations and all, that is the time when we take those things in further detail. Okay. Now, as we talk about capacity, how do we define a capacity? Can we call it as ability to do things?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So one aspect is ability to do things. Second is how much we are able to do. Okay. So it also talks about quantity. Correct. So the capacity of facility is defined as the maximum load that can be handled by it during a given period. Okay. So why do we insist upon given period? Because the capacity will change as along with the time period depending upon the demand also. Even if the demand is less, okay, so that time we the layout changes, or there are some changes which are incorporated within an organization, so automatically the capacity will change. Okay, so capacity is always expressed in terms of either input or output. Normally the capacity, if we talk about, okay, if I ask you what is your capacity, so obviously we need to define capacity for what. So let us say if I ask you how many number of pages can you write in say 1 hour's time.
So max 3 to 4.
Max 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's the capacity.
That's the capacity. Now how much you will write is a different story, but how much you can write is termed as capacity. When we are talking about capacity, we are actually talking about it in terms of when everything is perfect. There is no problem, there is no hurdle, there is no disturbance coming in between. Okay, so it may definitely be the best, but the minute we talk about real life scenario, under a test condition capacity would be definitely much higher, but under real life scenario or uh, when in work condition, the capacity may reduce. Okay, because of multiple reasons. Let us say when you are writing, that time your hand starts paining, so automatically your delivery will reduce. let us say your pen has stopped working in between. So again, what you were capable of delivering, you will not be able to deliver. Correct? There comes some disturbance. Somebody comes in, somebody walks in, or they ask you for some questions, anything, any kind of disturbance. So again, that will reduce your output. So capacity is one thing, and what is being delivered is just another thing. Okay, so we always talk about not just capacity, but we also talk about capacity utilization. If this is the capacity, out of the total capacity, how much we are able to utilize. Now, capacity can be measured in terms of input or in terms of output. Okay, for example, if we are talking about a sugar mill, we can define capacity in terms of tons of sugar cane which is getting crushed per day. Okay, so that means what is the amount of work that is being done. That is what it actually indicates. The other aspect is tons of sugar that is produced per day. That is output. Okay, delivery, actual delivery. So we can normally we always define capacity in terms of either input or output. Now let us look at a bank. It's a service sector. Now, if I want to talk about its capacity, how am I going to define that capacity? Capacity of a bank. Hello? Hello? How are we going to define the capacity of a bank? It would be in terms of we can basically in terms of number of transactions we can say, or the amount of or the volume of money that is being handled per day. Okay, if we talk about capacity of a trading center, so what worth of transactions take place, so that could be capacity. Okay, how much worth can be delivered. Okay, so under different scenarios, capacity is actually measured in different way. Okay, capacity of a plastic goods manufacturing company producing plastic chairs, tables, jugs, toys, etc. There we will be looking at capacity in terms of amount of plastic being processed per day. Okay, now need for capacity planning. Why do we need to plan capacity? So that we are able to manage demand satisfactorily. That's the first and the foremost thing. To satisfy the future demand of products without any storage. To keep the initial investment in the facility as low as possible to achieve lower break-even volume. To ensure the investments in facility capacity are long-term and cannot be reversed easily. So to manage them also. Okay, because Once you have invested in a capacity increase, you cannot immediately reduce it tomorrow. Okay, so capacity increase and decrease are time as well as cost intensive activities. To find the optimal capacity of the facility so that the sum of the costs of under and over capacity is the minimum, so that we are able to utilize the capacity to the optimum possible at the optimal level. Okay, we don't want under capacity and neither over utilization. Over utilization will burn down the facility, and under utilization will actually make some of the resources unused. Okay, so when you are not able to deliver to the potential. Capacity planning is the process of determining the production capacity needed by an organization to meet the changing demands for its products. Now, this definition is very much pertaining to production environment, but the same thing gets applicable in case of a service environment too. Okay, fine. Are we
Yes,
okay?
sir.
Yeah. Now, the factors which actually contribute to facility planning are the number of workers available, ability of the workers, number of machines which are being used, amount of waste, scrap that gets generated, the defects and errors occurrences, productivity of the system, as well as the workers, suppliers, quality of supply, government regulations, and preventive maintenance which takes place. In case preventive maintenance is not up to the mark, you will land up in trouble quite regularly. Okay, are we okay up to this?
Yes, sir.
For example, a machine which is being used on a regular basis, okay, and it has not gone through a preventive maintenance. For example, say let's say talk about a car. You have to travel, you have to go on a sales call, okay, and you have not got your machine, your vehicle serviced. It is already due, and you take it out. What is the possibility or probability of the car stopping in between? High, correct? So preventive maintenance becomes crucial. Fine. It will actually prevent unnecessary stoppages or hindrances in the delivery of the output. Fine. Now, when we talk about planning, okay, so there are different levels of planning and different types of planning. So we can say long range planning, intermediate range planning, and short range planning. In case of short range planning, normally people focus on scheduling the job, scheduling personnel, and allocating machineries to ensure the delivery. Okay. When we talk about intermediate range planning, we are actually talking about uh, capacity augmentation techniques like subcontracting, adding additional equipments, planning for the shifts, okay, adding new personnels, or building or using inventory. When we talk about long range planning, we are actually talking about adding new facilities altogether. When people want to service, for example, say let's say Chroma wants to service more cities, so they have to actually start their branches at multiple locations. When they are planning to start up their branches at multiple locations, so that means they need more personnel, they need infrastructure, they need the supply of the material in those corners too. Correct?
Yes,
So
sir.
demand forecasting becomes the key when we talk about capacity planning. Okay, how do we go about capacity planning? It's a cyclic process. It doesn't stop actually, because as the market keeps on changing, customer requirements keeps on changing, so this also keeps uh,
Changing.
changing, or rather it needs regular reassessment. Okay, so you need to determine if existing hardware or system is meeting the company's needs. You need to determine the company's future needs, identify the opportunities to consolidate the resources, determine whether the existing infrastructure can support anticipated growth. If not, then you have to plan for capacity augmentation, addition of further capacity, or in case if the demand for the product has started reducing, so you are expected to reduce the capacity for that particular product and increase the capacity for the new product or the product which has demand in the market. Then implement the capacity planning. When we talk about implementation of capacity planning, it's always a phase-wise implementation. Okay, and then again you will start with again reassessing your company's capacity requirements. Fine up to this?
Yes, sir.
Now, different capacity planning techniques. Okay, so we always normally go for rough cut capacity plans, which is actually done based on your forecasting, manufacturing production schedule, forecasting according to your consumption records, that is demand patterns. Okay, previous earlier demand patterns or historical demand patterns, and planned manufacturing orders which are already there in the pipeline. So capacity rough cut approaches include capacity planning using overall factors, using capacity bills, and resource profiling. Now, when we talk about capacity planning using overall factors, it is based on master production schedule and production standards that convert required units of finished goods into historical loads on each work center. It is a simple manual approach to capacity planning. When we talk about capacity bills, we are actually, this is also based on master production schedule. Okay, but it is not very much dependent on historical ratios. It utilizes the bills of material. Are you aware of what is a bill of material? Any idea? What is a bill of material?
So it's a product structure, a list of raw materials.
Yes, to some extent, yes, right. It tells you about the product structure too. Bill of material gives you information in terms of the parts required for production of that particular material. Not only just that, but also it talks about the what do we say? Uh, Cost structure also. So that means if I want to make 1 unit of a product, so what all parts are required? Okay, what would be the cost of it? The advanced bill of material, that is BOM, BOM, bill of material, also include uh, the information related to the suppliers who can supply those parts. Okay, so a master production schedule will also pull out information from the inventory also, that how many units of a particular product can be produced completely. Okay, so you take into consideration the demand, the forecast, and accordingly your master production schedule is also planned. Fine. So it uses the bill of material and the routing sheet, which basically talks about the sequence of work centers required to manufacture the part, as well as the setup and runtime. Capacity requirements can be determined by multiplying the number of units required by the MPS with the time needed to produce each unit. Okay. The other method is resource profiling. There, these are same as bills of capacity, except for the lead times are also included, so that workloads fall into the correct period and are managed within that planned time period itself. Okay. This capacity requirement planning is basically done along with support from MRP, Materials Requirement Planning System. Now, when we talk about capacity planning, okay, now at what capacity a particular facility or an organization should actually operate. So that decision is taken up from this. Just a second. So that is done based on this demand or output curve. Okay, so per unit cost, average per unit cost of the product versus the production rate, that is production volume that is being done. So if the production rate is less, that is volumes are less, okay, so your average cost per unit of product will always be higher. As you increase, your average cost also starts reducing, but after a point it starts increasing again, and this lowermost point is considered to be the optimum capacity. That means at that capacity, the cost of production would be, cost of production or cost of services would be the least. Fine up to this?
So could you please explain that part A diagram?
Okay. What is happening here is we are actually talking about the cost of production curve. Okay. As we produce more and more units, your average cost starts reducing per unit.
Okay,
Average
sir.
cost per unit starts reducing. But after a while, it again starts going up. So normally the optimum operating point is the point wherein you have the least average cost of production. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Now, for a small sized plant, your average cost per unit may be higher, as well as the output rate will also be less. As you increase the size of the plant, that means the capacity that is being handled, as it increases, your medium-sized plant will have lower cost per unit, at the same time higher output rate, and similarly highest output rate for a larger plant and the lowest cost per unit for the same. Okay, up to this?
Yes, sir.
So how do we define which type of uh, capacity or what capacity we should operate upon? So that totally depends upon at what scale we want to operate. Whether we want to operate at a smaller scale, medium scale, or a larger scale. Correct? As we talk about different scales, your costs, capital cost will also be changing. Here the capital cost would be the least, and here the capital cost would be the maximum. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Now, how do we increase the effective capacity? So, proper process quality control is one option. Reduce the defects and avoid the rework. Another method is train your workers, motivate them, ensure lesser absenteeism and higher productivity from them. Okay, and lesser turnover. Good coordination with your suppliers for the timely and defect-free supplies and proper scheduling of products on machines. When we say proper scheduling, that means we don't want the machines to be idle. At the same time, we don't want the product to be waiting for service and the machine is busy. Okay, so we want the product also to be reaching the production line exactly at the time when it will be used for, when it will be serviced or when it will be actually put onto production. पहले से ही जाकर के वेट करेगा या वो सब, that's not the right thing to happen. That will only just reduce the flow. Fine. Properly following the environmental and pollution norms. Yes, sorry.
Yes, sir. We are fine with it.
Vihansh, can you please come up again?
Sir, we are fine with this.
Sorry.
Hello?
Hi, yes. Yes, Vihansh. Am I audible clearly?
Sir, we understood that.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We understood that point.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. The other way is to make products and services as uniform as possible so that you can very clearly define and predict how much would be the output. Okay. At the same time, you will have better control over the batch sizes. Proper facility location so that you are able to receive material at the right time and you are able to deliver it to the market also without much of a problem. Okay, having good layout and internal working conditions. Now, normally when we talk about capacity utilization, the simplest formula would be the capacity used upon the maximum capacity which is possible. Okay, there is another concept which we normally look at, which talks about the convenience of using the capacity or flexibility of the capacity, is the capacity cushion. Okay, that means the extra capacity which is available and can be used whenever there is a rise in demand. Okay, very high cushion will talk about idle resources, but at the same time very less cushion will also make you vulnerable. For example, if the demand increases suddenly, you won't be able to service the demand. Okay, so question has to be at an optimal level. It cannot be very low or it cannot be very high. Okay, so capacity question is basically given by 1 minus capacity utilization. Okay, up to this?
Yes.
Different terminologies which we use related to capacity: design capacity, effective capacity, actual capacity. These are the three which are actually most widely used terminologies. The first one is the design capacity. It is basically the capacity for which the facility has been designed. Okay, so under ideal condition, what is the maximum rate of output that can be achieved is your design capacity. Effective capacity is the capacity that you are able to achieve. Okay, it is practically not feasible to achieve the design capacity because of the losses due to setups, maintenance, quality testing, and etc. It is always lower than the design capacity, and it is the maximum rate of output which can be achieved under constraints. When we are talking about design capacity, we are not talking about any constraint. When we talk about effective capacity, we are talking about constraints also. Okay, then comes the third terminology, which is actual capacity, which talks about what you have actually achieved. Okay, it is the maximum output rate which is actually achieved under the constraints like machine breakdowns, labor inefficiencies, absenteeism, defective products, late deliveries. Okay, it can be equal to or less than the effective capacity. अब आप इसमें normally if you look at, design capacity would be the highest, effective capacity would be less than design capacity, and your actual capacity would be even lesser than effective capacity or equal to. Fine up to this?
Yes, sir.
Now, when we talk about the performance of the system, it is actually measured in terms of the efficiency and the capacity utilization. Efficiency means the actual output that you are able to achieve with reference to your effective capacity. That means under constraints, what you should have been able to achieve and what you have actually achieved is your efficiency. Fine up to this?
Yes.
Now, talking about capacity utilization is always in reference to what your actual output had been as compared to the design capacity. Okay. Now, a simple numerical has been taken up so that we are able to understand exactly how do we do this. Just a second. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first question, basically it talks about Sarah James Bakery has a plant for processing breakfast rolls. Last week the facility produced 1,48,000 rolls. The effective capacity is 1,75,000 rolls. The production line operates 7 days per week with 3 8-hour shifts per day. The line was designed to process a nut-filled, cinnamon-flavored, sugar-coated deluxe roll at the rate of 1200 per hour. Determine the design capacity, utilization, and efficiency for this plant when producing the deluxe roll. Now, when we talk about design capacity, under ideal conditions, we will assume that all the 7 days, all the 3 shifts, and all the 8 hours are productive. And the production rate is 1200 per hour. So we'll find out the total number of hours in 7 days, 3 shifts, and 8 hours. So every day, 8 hours into 3 shifts will give you 24 hours per day. 24 into 7 will give you total number of hours in a week. Okay? And, yes. And every hour you are producing 1200 rolls per hour. So total you get 2,01,600 rolls in how much? How much time? In 7 days. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if I have to measure the utilization, capacity utilization, so it is very simply given by actual output divided by the design capacity. Fine. So, actual output is how much? It is indicated that last week the financially produced 1,48,000. They were able to produce 1,48,000 rolls. So actually they were able to produce 1,48,000 rolls as compared to their total capacity of 2,01,600 rolls. Fine up to this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So that tells me that this is around 73.4% utilization. Fine? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now talking about the efficiency of the system. Efficiency of the system can be actually evaluated using the formula efficiency is equal to actual output upon effective capacity. Now, how much is your effective capacity?
1,75,000.
It is directly indicated as 1,75,000. And how much you are able to deliver? 1,48,000.
48,000.
48,000.
So your efficiency is 1,48,000 divided by 1,75,000. So it comes to something around 84.6%.
Yes, sir.
The manager of Sarah James Bakery now needs to increase the production of the increasingly popular deluxe roll. To meet this demand, the operations manager will be adding a second production line. The manager must determine the expected output of this second line. Effective capacity on the second line is the same as the first line. So, first line में effective capacity कितना था? 1,75,000.
70,000.
Okay. So, effective capacity on the second line is also same, 1,75,000. The maximum efficiency of the second line is expected to be 75% as the crew working on this line will be primarily new hires. Thus, the expected output of the second production line would be how much? डायरेक्ट हम सीधा ये कर सकते हैं, we can effective capacity into ये वाला फॉर्मूला यूज कर सकते हैं ना, into efficiency, the last formula.
Yes, sir.
We can simply say this will actually be deriving from efficiency equals to actual output upon effective capacity. So actual output is the expected output. So the expected output equals to effective capacity into efficiency. Effective capacity is given as 1,75,000 and we know that efficiency is 75%, which is
75,
expected.
0.75.
So उसका 75%, so that is 0.75. So you will get 1,31,250 rolls on the second line. So we collectively, how much Sarah James Bakery will be able to produce with two lines? 1,48,000 plus 1,31,250.
250.
Okay. Now, one more example can be taken up. This will help you in terms of understanding it better. Okay. So, a photographic paper manufacturer has a coating line with a design capacity of 200 square meters per minute, and a line is operated on a 24-hour day, 7 days per week, 168 hours per week. करेक्ट ना? 24-hour day and 7 days per week बोलेंगे तो कितना
Yes,
हो
sir.
गया? यही हुआ ना,
168
168.
hours.
Correct. So during this week the actual output was only 5,82,000 square meters. Okay, the records for a week's production show the following lost production time. If you look at this table, it says product changeovers. आप एक type का product बना रहे हो and when you are switching over to another type, so there is a product changeover time which is required, which is a setup time. So they have lost around 20 hours in that week. Regular preventive maintenance will also consume some time. So 16 hours. No work was scheduled, 8 hours. Just a second. Okay, so quality sampling checks, which are again unavoidable things. So 8 hours is basically missed out in quality sampling checks. Shift change times, maintenance breakdowns, 18 hours. Quality failure investigation, that is 20 hours. Coating material stockouts, 8 hours. Labor shortages, 6 hours. Waiting for paper rolls, 6 hours. Now what you are supposed to actually work out is what is the design capacity, what is the effective capacity, what is the actual output, what is the utilization of the system, and what is the efficiency of the system. Okay, so in such a scenario, what you will do is you will actually, first thing is identify the avoidable, unavoidable lost hours. Okay, so what we do is we start with your design capacity. Okay, so वो हम कैसे करेंगे? When we talk about production, आपके पास में information क्या दिया हुआ है? Design capacity is given of 200 square meters per minute and the line is operated on a 24-hour day, 7 days per week. So आपका design capacity is what? How much it would be? 200 square meters per minute बोल रहा है. So into 60 would be number of hours. So 200 square meters into 60 वो 1 hour के लिए हो जाएगा. Into 24 would be for the entire day. Into 7 would be for the entire week. Correct? So 200 into 60 into 24 into 7 would be 2.016 million square meters per week. Okay.
Yes.
Fine up to this.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of production hours, what we have is 24 hours per day and 7 days a week. So total 168 hours. Okay. So your design capacity in terms of the output is 2.016 million square meters per week, and in terms of production hours is 168 hours. Fine up to this?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we look at the items listed at from serial number 1 to serial number 5, that is production changeovers, regular preventive maintenance, no work scheduled, quality sampling, and shift change times, okay, are unavoidable uh, lost hours, okay, and some of them are planned occurrences. For example, quality checks, these are planned, okay, regular preventive maintenance, planned, product changeovers cannot be avoided, no work was scheduled. काम रहेगा तो आदमी शेड्यूल करेगा ना, या बिकॉज ऑफ some or the other reason there is a possibility that the raw material may have not been arrived, so आप वर्क शेड्यूल ही नहीं कर सकते हो. Okay, so these are from serial number 1 to serial number 5 are the production hours which are unavoidable. So when I say this is unavoidable, okay, so your effective capacity would be subtraction of these production hours from your design capacity. So your design capacity was 168 hours minus ये जो इसका समेशन है that comes to 59 hours. Okay, 1 से लेकर 5 तक का. Are we okay up to this? So your total effective capacity would be 168 minus 59, that is 109 hours. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, what was your actual output? Actual output will depend upon your बाकी का, which are avoidable, maintenance breakdowns, quality failure investigation, coating material stockouts, labor shortages, waiting for paper rolls. So अगर आपका प्लानिंग वगैरह बराबर होता तो serial number 6 to serial number 10 could have been avoided. Okay, these are controllable production losses. Fine. So
Yes.
effective capacity में से आप ये वापस 51 hours ये भी निकाल दोगे. So that would be your actual 51 नहीं, सॉरी ये कितना 58 है शायद, 38 46 52 58. Yes, this is 58. Okay, from serial number 6 to serial number 10. So you will subtract that also 58 from your effective capacity, that is 109. So 109 में से 58 आप subtract करेंगे, so you will get 51 hours. So your actual output is only just of 51 hours as compared to a design capacity of 168 hours. Fine.
Yes.
So अगर आपको आउटपुट के टर्म्स में बोलना होता तो you could have said 200 into 60 will tell you 1 hour into 51. That would be your actual production output. Fine up to this?
Yes.
Now, utilization is given by your actual output with reference to design capacity. So that means 51 divided by 168, which is 30.4%. Efficiency is given by your actual output in reference to your effective capacity. Okay, so that is 51 upon 109. So that is 0.468, that is 46.8%. So ऐसे न्यूमेरिकल एकदम सिंपल होते हैं, आपको बस जस्ट मार्क्स देने के लिए दे दिया, वैसा बोल सकते हो. Fine. It helps you in terms of understanding the concepts of capacity, design capacity, effective capacity, actual capacity. Fine.
Yes.
Now, when we talk about these capacities, capacities are dependent upon layouts. As we change the layout, the capacity also changes. Okay. So, capacity can be tweaked using better layouts. You would have seen that let us say a simple example wherein you have a guest coming at your place. Okay, so you know how you have arranged. So with that, you know that there would be limited number of guests whom you can accommodate. But tomorrow, if you come to know that more number of guests are coming in, so to accommodate them, the only way out that we normally use is we change the layout in the room. Correct? आपने देखा होगा, आप सब लोग ऐसे एडजस्ट करते हो ना, सोफा इधर की जगह उधर लगा देते हैं, ये इधर पर से इस रूम से हटा देते हैं. करेक्ट? We do something of that sort.
Yes, sir.
So that is facility layout management. Okay, so layout is nothing but arrangement of those facilities which are being used there. Okay, now what do we mean by a facility? Anything that facilitates work is facility. Anything that facilitates work is facility. So if you talk about the tools which are being provided to the worker, is a facility. The workspace sitting arrangement is a facility. Okay, the location of different facilities which are going to be used to facilitate work, will talk about the layout. Fine up to this?
Yes, sir.
So layout plays a very vital role. पहले क्या होता था, इवन व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द पीसीबी चिप्स वगैरह जो उस पे पीसीबीज पर माउंटेड होते हैं, एक साइड माउंट होता था. अभी आजकल आपको डबल साइडेड माउंटेड भी आते हैं बोर्ड्स, जिसकी वजह से यू आर एबल टू उतने ही जगह पर आप ज्यादा से ज्यादा चिप्स एकोमोडेट कर पाते हो. ओके,
Yes, sir.
these are some of the examples of a facility layout. Okay, here the facility has been divided into three parts depending upon the supervisors who will be supervising that particular part. So areas has been defined, and the one who is going to be in charge of the entire store or the entire workplace. Okay, this is